Hey guys, it's Sam and this is my July wrap-up. July was the best reading month I've had so far this year. I managed to read 10 books, which is crazy, and looking back I'm like still not sure how exactly I did it. But yeah, we can skip the part where I think the summer's flying by, because it is, and let's just get into it. The first book I picked up this month was Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Infernal Devices trilogy. As many of you know, because I'm talking about it a ton this month, this is the only Cassandra Clare series that I have read. I do not want to read any other ones really. I'll talk about that more in the future, blah blah blah. I've already done a full review and discussion for this book, so I'll leave the review linked on the screen. But this is a decent starter book. If you have not read any Cassandra Clare, you can definitely just jump into this Infernal Devices series if you want to. I've heard a lot of people want to do that. I've heard a lot of people have done that, and knowing from experience as I did that totally works. So they're really easy to get into, they're really compulsively readable. This series definitely added to my books read this month because they're just super easy to read and fly through. They're nothing groundbreaking, but they're fun, and this book was decently fun. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Then we have The Seafarers Kiss by Julia Ember. The copy of this book was sent to me by the author for review, and this is a Little Mermaid retelling with a Norse mythology spin on it, and it has a ladies loving ladies romance. The main character is actually, I think, bisexual. It kind of isn't completely clear, but pretty much hinted bisexual. So I especially enjoyed the first part of this story. I really liked the Norse mythology elements that were mixed into this. I really liked how this was a Little Mermaid retelling, but it was definitely very different. Like, it wasn't the same feel. There were certain elements that were still there, but it very much felt like its own story, so I didn't find it really predictable in any way. And there was a lot of really good body positivity things in here. There was a lot of good bi positivity things in here. So that was awesome, and I liked that dynamic. But I definitely felt like this book could have been longer. The second part definitely felt rushed. The second part takes place over, I think it's supposed to be months, but the timeline is really not consistent and kind of confusing, and it doesn't really make sense how all these things happen in this short amount of time, and you don't really feel the passage of time. So I felt like in a longer story you'd really get this kind of quest feeling, because there's this kind of quest feeling to it, and you would kind of get the gravity of everything that's going on, but with this everything was wrapped up really quickly. This book is less than 300 pages, I think, so it's not very long at all, and you really fly through it. I liked elements of the romance, but not other parts. So the first part of the book, again, was pretty strong. I liked the romance there, it was good, but then the second part of the book, it kind of starts to fall apart a little bit, again, because of the whole, like, how much time has passed thing, how well these characters really know each other, and it feels very rushed. It doesn't feel forced, but it feels rushed. And then there's an element later on in the story that has partner romantic violence, which never gets addressed by the narrative. I have heard that there's going to be edits to this book now because that is going to be addressed, but it's still something that's a little, I can't say anything about that because I haven't read the edits, I've only read this one. But that's something to be noted if you are picking up a first edition copy of this or whatever. So that was a little concerning, and I have heard some things from some trans or non-binary reviewers who say that some of the stuff in here, as far as gender, isn't that great either. There's mixed opinions there. There's a character in here who's non-binary, transgender, kind of, and that's not really that well done in some cases. I think some of the edits are going to address that as well. So I can't talk about any of the like edited stuff obviously, but I can talk about, you know, what I read. So overall, it's still a really cute story. If you're looking for some fantasy ladies loving ladies, then definitely check this out and see if you like it. It's short, but I think it could have been elaborated on and been a little bit stronger. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I then listened to The Amber Spyglass by Philip Pullman. This is the last book in the His Dark Materials trilogy. I have had an interesting experience with this. The last 2 books I've read on audio. The first book I read in physical copy. I am not as deeply attached to it as a lot of people are, and I find it, there's things about that I love, and there's things about it I just am like, like I didn't really find it as heart-wrenching as I wanted to, because everyone's like, this is so heart-wrenching, and I just didn't really find that. I feel like it built up so much to an ending that I felt like was a little bit anticlimactic, not really sure the point. Also, Philip Pullman gets so heavy-handed with the anti-religion. Like, we get it. I'm not religious myself. I have a problem with a lot of, like, institutionalized religion and stuff like that, but man, like, I get it, okay? Like, really, the second book and this last book, he really beats you over the head with it, and I'm like, calm down, okay? Like, I get it, you hate religion, and, you know, like, the structure of religion, and it's bad, I get it, it's bad, but, like, calm down a little bit, okay? But then I like other elements of it where, like, Lyra as the main character is still a child, but they definitely all get help from adults in their lives. Adults are a huge part. Lyra and Will are the 2 kind of main characters in this, and they get help from adults and adults help them on their path, and it's not like there's just like these absent adult figures and whatever. So that's a good thing. And then I really liked how this was produced. I like that this was a full cast, so if you're looking to read these, then definitely check out the full cast audiobooks. I think they were really well done, really well acted and narrated and everything. And I'm actually really excited about the BBC adaptation of this. Like, I'm really pumped for that. And I think I'm going to really enjoy that. But with these, I just was kind of left feeling like, I don't know. They're really good discussion books. There's a lot of meat to just like chomp on, and a lot of things about the story to really go over, and like really good for book clubs and stuff. But I don't have that like nostalgic feeling for them like I read them as a kid or anything. I don't have that. And just some things I feel like were really heavy-handed. I do think I'll read The Book of Dust, which is the next book that's coming out, that kind of, some parts of it are a prequel and part of it are sequels and all this stuff. But yeah, it's not like my favorite childhood series by any means. There's a lot of convoluted things about it, but it's a book series that I'm always willing to discuss with people because it's definitely one of those. I gave the Amber Spyglass 3.75 out of 5 stars. I then picked up Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor. This is the second book in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy. It's another one that I've done a full review and discussion on. I loved this. I can't believe that I, again, took so long to read the second book because I'm a moron, but I loved everything about this. This was so good. The only thing that was missing, I think, for me was that the first book has a lot of angsty romance stuff in it, and this has less. The parts that were in there were so good, but, like, it has less. And I really like that about the series, like, I really do. So that was a little bit missing for me, but I really like what this series says about war and people in wars and how there's no, like, the people fighting the wars, there's really no right or wrong because you're just following orders of people who are higher up who don't care about anybody. And I just really like this whole, like, commentary on war. I also love Laini Taylor's writing. It's just, like, it's beautiful. Not everyone loves it. It really speaks to me. Like, I will pick up anything that she writes. So I want to finish this series, and then I'm going to read Strange the Dreamer. But I'm loving this. I'm hoping to get to Dreams of Gods and Monsters before the end of the year. I read Daughter of Smoke and Bone at this time last year. Well, like, fall last year. So I want to read Dreams of Gods and Monsters before the end of the year. I think it'll happen. I think it will. But yeah, I really love this one. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. And then I decided I wanted to continue on the angst train, and I read Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare. I decided I just wanted to just go through this whole series, read it as marathon read as possible, and just kind of do it. Because once I got into it, I didn't want to be spoiled. I knew there was a high chance of spoilers. I decided ultimately to not put my reviews up until I was done reading the series, because I didn't even want any hints. I was terrified of spoilers for this. So I ended up picking this next one up. I enjoyed it more than the first book, but I didn't start enjoying it a ton until about halfway through. There's a lot of different, like, plot elements that I just felt like didn't really get sorted until then, and then the series really kind of starts to take off. I feel like the second book is definitely more character-focused than the first book, and it just starts to get a lot less plotty and a lot more character-driven, relationship-driven, but that's why I was reading the series. I'm reading the series for the characters, not for the plot stuff, because the plot's, like, just, there's nothing really that unique about the plot, or about, like, the villain. Like, there's really, it's just kind of... So I read it for, like, the main characters and their interactions and all that stuff. So I started to really enjoy that about, like I said, halfway through. I do have a review for this coming up on Monday, a review and discussion. I gave this one 3.75 out of 5 stars. I then read These Broken Stars by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. I actually read this on audiobook as well. And I actually really enjoyed this audiobook version. This has 2 different narrators. I wish they would have just, like, I hate when they narrate chapters and they have voices for the guy and the girl, but in the girl's chapters she speaks for the guy and that kind of thing. Like, why can't you just narrate those parts? You know what I mean? I don't like that. But that's a thing in, like, all audiobooks. So I ended up really enjoying this. This is the first book in a companion trilogy, I'm pretty sure, and this starts taking place on a ship, and the first little chunk of it is kind of like Titanic in space. Like, kind of. That's actually what I heard the whole book was about, and then people were like, well, no, that's not really true, and all this stuff. So yeah, the first little chunk is Titanic in space. The rest of it is kind of like Lost a little bit. Like, yeah, so it's kind of like Titanic in space mixed with a Lost, like, survival type story. And I'm really enjoying it. I didn't go into this with any expectations. I didn't know any spoilers for it. I hadn't really heard a ton about it in years now because the series was pretty popular a couple of years ago. So I'm really glad I read it. It was a fun time. And I think I'm going to pick up the rest of this series on audio. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I then picked up Invisible Planets. This is an anthology that's edited by Ken Liu, and this is an anthology of contemporary science fiction authors' short stories. that are from China. So all Chinese authors in translation, and I really wanted to pick this up. I got sent this in a tour box one time, and I wanted to get introduced to some Chinese authors. The Chinese SFF community, the science fiction community in particular, is really booming right now, and I want to know more about it and the authors that are coming up with that and everything. Since this is an anthology, you're not going to like every story, and I knew that going into it, so I actually have individual reviews, like individual ratings for every single story in here. If you want to check out my Goodreads account, then I have all that listed on there. I didn't do like in-depth reviews for each one, but I have a rating so you can kind of figure out which ones I liked more than others. I did have some authors in there that I'm going to look into more. Actually, most of the female authors I really liked in here, less than some of the male authors, but it was an interesting take on the, like, getting a look kind of at Chinese culture and contemporary Chinese culture and how it's influencing their speculative fiction. There's also essays right before, like intros kind of that Ken Liu does of these different authors and like how they are interacting with the SFF world over there. There's essays at the back from a couple of the authors, like, that are more non-fiction type essays, are talking about that too. So it was really cool. There's a couple of stories in particular. There's a story about like a little android that was super cute. And yeah, I definitely want to check more of the authors that I liked out in the future. So ultimately I gave this an average 3.5 star rating after I tallied up all of the totals of the individual stories. And then I picked up Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. So I finished the series. There will be, again, a full review and discussion on this last book coming up very soon in the month, in a couple of weeks here, so you'll get my full thoughts. I ultimately think this is a series that does get better with every book. I am really glad I didn't read The Mortal Instruments first, because I have now since learned that there were some spoilers for this series, kind of, or hints at least, in The Mortal Instruments that I wouldn't have wanted to know. So I'm glad I read this first, even though everyone was like, you should have read The Mortal Instruments first. No! I'm glad I didn't. So this continues to be the only series I'm really interested in. I am going to, I think, pick up The Last Hours when it eventually comes out. I don't want to skip to the Dark Artifices. Some people said that I should. I don't really want to, because I wouldn't want to be, like, not knowing stuff about the Mortal Instruments and reading the Dark Artifices. Like, I just don't want to do that. I'm not really interested in her contemporary-ish stories. I just want the older historical fiction-y type stories. That's what I like and am interested in at all. So I might pick up The Last Hours. We'll see, like, if I'm in the mood for it when it comes out. But I'm still ultimately really glad I read this. I do really enjoy this love triangle. I will talk about this more in my reviews, but I end up liking the love triangle. I ship all three of them. They are my OT3. Like, I don't have a team, you know? So that's what I wanted when I went into it. That's what I got. I'm happy. I'm satisfied. Was this flawless? No. Do I see why people love it? Yes. Was I in a book hangover after? No. I was able to read things after, but it's good. I'm glad I read it. And I'm really bitter because I don't think we're going to get a series, like a TV series about this or like a movie series about this, and I'm pissed because I want to have it. Like, I don't think it's going to happen in Shadowhunters or whatever. I don't think Shadowhunters is going to continue much longer from things that I've heard about it, and yeah, I want this series. I'm like, CW! That's what everybody wanted, and we're not going to get it, and I'm mad because I just want gift sets and I want, like, all of that. I like the angstiness of this. It's a fun ride. Is it flawless? No. Is it fun? Yeah. Is it angsty? Yeah. So did I like it? Yeah. Still not my favorite series of all time or anything, but I gave Clockwork Princess 4.5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, in-depth review and discussion will be coming up later in the month. I then picked up We Are Okay by Nina LaCour, and I promptly read it in one sitting. This is about a girl who's away at college. Something happened right before she left for college with her family and her friend who she was falling for, and they were having kind of like a relationship. So a lot of things have happened and she's kind of dealing with that. It's about Christmas time. She's staying there at her college campus alone, and her best friend comes to stay with her, and everything kind of takes off from there. So this is, again, two ladies that have feelings for one another. Super great, super wonderful. I really enjoyed this. I was moved to tears a few times in this, and I wasn't expecting that at all. Again, this is really easy to read in one sitting, and I highly recommend doing so. It's so good. It's one of my favorite contemporaries that I've ever read, and it's definitely one of my favorite contemporaries of this year since I haven't been reading a ton of them. But I'm super glad I picked this one up, and I just don't want to say much about it any more than that because it's just good. It just gave me a lot of feelings. It has a lot of themes of like family and friendship and how that changes and what that means and all these things around like college and finding yourself and all that stuff. So it's not like a coming out story or anything. So if you're kind of sick of coming out stories, it's not about that kind of like finding that identity. It's about like finding kind of your place in a family identity, which I haven't seen a ton of within contemporary. So I loved this and gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I read Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shauna McGuire. This is the second book in the companion series. It's a trilogy right now, but she could do more of them from the Every Heart a Doorway series. So this follows some of the kids that were in Every Heart a Doorway in the school, because it's about portal fantasies and kids who come back from portal fantasies and like are struggling with that, so come back through the doors from different worlds. So this is about 2 of them, Jack and Jill, and they are from a place called the Moors, and this is their story from before and then during the Moors, before they come to the school. It is so good. It's so good. It's a little novella. You can read it in one sitting. I definitely did. You don't want to put it down. From the first chapter, I knew I was going to love this. This one in particular has so much to say about parenting, about wanting to be a parent, about how parents can do a lot of damage to their kids by not letting them be who they want to be, about how parents will get, there's a line in here about like being tricked by other people's kids, because you see this like what people present outwardly from like what their kids are, and they're like, I want that perfect kid, and when they don't realize that kids aren't perfect, and parental expectations and kids not having a right to choose who they want to be because their parents' expectations for them, and how damaging that can be, all this stuff, and then how that, and even like some gender identity stuff and like femininity versus masculinity. I'm like rambling, but it's so good. I just finished this yesterday, that's why I'm like, blah. It's so good. It's so good. It makes me so happy. It's even better than the first book, and I really loved the first book. It does still struggle with this like first half versus second half thing that it just kind of does. With her stories, I've noticed that she just kind of stumbles a little bit in the last half because it just kind of like rushes a bit. But I love it. I want to see more of these characters. I love these 2 the most. Jack in particular is like my favorite, and I want to see more of them, but I don't know if we're going to get that. She has mentioned that she would like to follow them after the events of Every Heart a Doorway, so hopefully we get that. So everyone needs to read this so that more of her books in this series can be picked up and we can see like all the portal worlds and everything. That's what I want. That's what I want. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars, and I will be doing a full review for this as well. So those are all the books that I read this month. Comment down below, let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all guys soon. Bye!